It is an art, choosing gladiators. They're usually prisoners of war.
I claim this city for the glory of Rome.
You have something in you. Rage. Never let it go. It will carry you to greatness. I own you now. But whose head could I give you to satisfy your fury?
The general will do. Rome has taken everything from me. But I will have my vengeance.
There is plenty of pain waiting for you in the next life. I don't know why you are so greedy for it in this one.
Your Majesties.
This is your gladiator.
It is. I have the trust of the emperors. It will clear my path to the throne. You will be my instrument.
I will never be your instrument. In this life or the next.
Lucius, take your father's strength. His name was Maximus, and I see him in you.
Most fighters won't survive.
You must help him.
Strength and honor! I don't fight for power. I fight to free Rome from men like them.
Your name will be forgotten!
To restore order, I must have power.
Everything is forgotten in time. Empires fall. So do emperors.
This is war! Real war! The odds are against you.
The odds are always against me.
Ready to ram!
Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. Well, really, our morning review show today. By the trailer you just watched, we saw Gladiator, but we saw it last Sunday, so we just kind of were putting it off because more important things were happening, like the inauguration and things like that. But today is our review of that movie, and honestly, I don't know how to describe. I mean, I guess if I would sum it up, I would say cinematically awesome, but pointless. What would you say? That's a fair summary, Chad?
So I would say that is an extremely accurate summary.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it was gorgeous. The film, like the fight scenes, were better than I thought they would be. It was cinematically gorgeous. The CGI was really good. You know, but I think it's Ridley Scott's gotten into his Steven Spielberg and George Lucas era, where basically no one can tell you no, and with anything, I mean, Gladiator is one of those films where it's a perfect film. The original Gladiator is literally a perfect film. And, this is Hollywood wanting to capitalize off of a name recognition. This is, what happens when there are no good ideas left in Hollywood. Like nobody wants to create something new. And even if they did create something new, there's no guarantee it's going to take off like Star Wars or Star Trek or anything, really, So they're just capitalizing off of name recognition.
Yes, completely capitalizing off of name recognition with a less liked character.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like everything that he did in the movie didn't feel as deserved as Maximus.
Yes. So again, the original Gladiator, it's a very personal story. Like, I mean, what happens in it? I mean, you have Maximus, a respected general of the armies, lives in Spain, and then he fights, and then he loves Marcus Aurelius, wants to fight and die for him. Marcus Aurelius appoints him to be the next successor. What happens? His son comes in, Commodus, kills him, and then when Maximus doesn't bend the knee to Commodus, he puts him to death, or thinks he puts Maximus to death. Maximus obviously, is a competent leader and fighter, and is able to prevent his own death, and then he goes back home to go make sure his wife and kids aren't going to be killed, and he gets there and they've all been killed, crucified, and He becomes enslaved because he just passes out after the long journey, and then slavers come by and pick him up and take him. And that's how that movie. That's how the stakes were so personal in that film. And this, they attempted to do the same thing. Like, again, but what was the point? Like, Maximus has a personal vendetta against Commodus, the most powerful man in the land in Rome. And he becomes a slave, and then the slave stands up to a king, and then the king basically is defeated.
Yeah, and this one, they tried to recapture that, except, they had to have a strong female character, fighter too. His wife's a fighter. She dies in that
the
first
only
fight.
woman in the entire battle gets shot, and his rage is directed at the wrong thing. But again, with this, to give this one a fair shake, I'll say is we all don't get the amazing, like, Maximus's story is almost like a Christ-like story. It's like a story of redemption and sacrifice, This one's more of a realistic version. It's like how real life would operate, is what I would say. But that's the problem. With cinema, you want the villain. You want a good villain. You want the hero to stand up and stop the villain, or self-sacrifice will defeat the villain.
Well, exactly. That's part of the problem. Is the redirect was like Maximus's villain was Commodus, was the main bad guy,
was the most powerful man.
Exactly. In this one, it was his stepdad. His target was his stepdad, basically. Which, makes sense, but then there's the emperors who they're trying to also make evil at the same time, and you're like, okay, I'm very lost.
Yeah, they're not evil; they're just incompetent egotists, And there's so much about this, but I would say it's a more realistic depiction of how life works out. Like Lucius. So it turns out the main character is Lucius. That's not a spoiler at this point, but he is. He's coming back because he gets enslaved because he and his wife are defending some town in Africa that is being taken over by the Roman Empire, and she gets killed. So that's his revenge story. He wants to kill what's his name, Pedro Pascal's character, who we don't know at this point is actually his stepdad. He's the guy that's married his wife's mom. And it'd be nice if they had made him like a guy that was trying to like overthrow the emperors, but overthrow them to become a big bad guy. But no, they're like, no, he wants to overthrow them because he doesn't like going to war. He's a good guy. Yeah. So, Lucius's anger is directed at the wrong person, but it's just that's who he wants to kill because that's the guy that ordered his wife's death. Effectively. And not only does he literally order it by, being the general that ordered the attack, like, he literally points and says, kill that lady. Like, that's how ridiculous it is because she's shooting arrows at them, and he's like, I got to protect my men and myself. Shoot that girl. It's like, well, what did you expect is going to happen? So, anyway, but they couldn't make Pedro Pascal a dislikable character. They had to make him like a pseudo-likable character in the show, and he's a good man of honor. He's a general who's sick of fighting. But the emperors and their egos want to send them out to keep fighting.
Yeah, they keep on expanding the empire.
So that's what's so dumb. It's like we want somebody we can dislike, and we want our anger directed at, basically the devil, the character that we know is the bad guy, and we want him to lose. But it's just incompetence and egos in this film. That's all this is. Like, it's again, that's why I say the first one's better because it's a far more personal story. Like, the anger is directed at the right person. Everything, you're like, F Commodus. We don't like Commodus, But in this one, it's like, yes, the stepdad killed Lucius's wife. But he was only there because the emperors told him to be there. Yeah. They're trying to tell a complex story, and it does hold more real to how real life is. Again, soldiers don't go to war because they want to. Soldiers go to war because politicians send us to war. That's what this is. It's the chain of command. I guess the best way I could describe this film is the story of the non-conforming sparrow. You know what I'm talking about, Dad? So if you guys want to hear the story, Gladiator 2 is the story of the non-conforming sparrow. So there is a sparrow, right? And this sparrow wants to doesn't want to migrate, doesn't want to fly south for the winter. So all the other sparrows take off, and they go, you need to come or you're going to die. And he goes, no, I'm going to live up here and live the high life. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys are just silly. So, and then the other sparrows leave, and then all of a sudden it starts getting cold, and that sparrow goes, oh my gosh, it's really cold. I got to fly south. I'm going to freeze to death. So the sparrow starts flying south, and what happens? It gets so cold that the sparrow's wings freeze, and he falls out of the sky, and he lands in a hay barn field. and a hayfield. And you know why he's out there laying in this field? He goes, "I'm going to die right here. There's nothing I can do. What a horrible decision I made." And all of a sudden, a cow walks over him and craps right on big old cow patty. And he goes, "Wow, life couldn't get any worse, could it? Like, this is awful. This is terrible. Like, I'm now not only am I going to freeze to death, I'm covered in crap." And all of a sudden, he realizes this crap is warm. I'm actually starting to move. I can start to move my wings and feathers a little bit. So he starts chirping because he's getting happy. He's like, wow, this is actually, things are working up. I'm going to be able to make it out of this. I'm going to survive. And then all of a sudden, he's chirping because he's so happy. There's a barn cat that hears him chirping. And a barn cat walks out of the barn and comes out there and sees him out there in that field, sitting in that cow patty, picks him up, eats him.
Now, you might be wondering the moral of this story, if there's even a moral to this story. Well, there are 3 morals to this story, and I'll let Corey sort them out for you.
So, the first moral of the story is not everyone who craps on you is your enemy. And the second moral of the story is not everyone who pulls you out of the crap is your friend. And I'll let you do the last one.
I don't even remember the last one now. I've literally just blanked on it because I've been laughing so much.
Yeah. You know, in fact, I'm not sure I remember the last one either. I guess it's, you know, don't be the non-conforming sparrow.
So don't break tradition.
Don't break tradition just for the sake of breaking it effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it was. That was the first one you're supposed to start with. And not everyone that pulls you out of the shit.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, not everyone that pulls. So, and that's the moral of this movie. That's the moral of Gladiator 2. You know, it's not everyone who craps on you is your enemy, and not everyone who pulls you out of the crap is your friend. Because that's what Denzel Washington's character represents, the guy that pulls you out of the crap by buying him. You have, his stepdad, the general, who kills his wife. He crapping on him, essentially, but he didn't crap on it. It was not done with malice, you know. It was done out of, I don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the moral of the story, and again, it's more realistic, you know. It's like, again, our rage. It's like I guess you could describe it as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Their rage is directed at the wrong people, you know.
Yeah, I could see that. But all in all, not the best movie. Still a visually and cinematically epic movie.
It's a great.
The story is not there.
It's a great popcorn flick, a really good popcorn flick, and again, I was not well entertained, but again. The thing about everything that Maximus did felt earned and deserved. Even the relationships he develops with his fellow gladiators.
Yep.
Felt real, deserved. You know, like Jijimon Hansu and him. Like their friendship felt real. Mm-hmm. Every person that Lucius makes friends with in this, like, I'm just like, first of all, I can't even remember the characters' names. You know, I don't remember the other character. I only remember Maximus from the movie, but I remember the friendship and the bonds that he built, and I remembered how he did it.
Yeah, there was the black guy, the African, hunter, which we know is what you just said his name.
Digimon Hansu.
Digimon Hansu. And then there was the big Germanian guy.
Yep. The barbarian, the giant jack dude.
And then, those were really the 2 main ones from that one. But yeah, just like, I don't know any of the guys' names. And none of them were that memorable in this. And they all just liked him from the start for no reason.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and
like I said, the German guy earned his respect after he was in the first fight and he saved him.
Like
I said,
he
doesn't do that for anybody in this one.
Yeah, he doesn't save anybody. He's just the leader for the sake of being the leader. Like, Maximus was a general. Like, he was in charge of stuff. Like, Lucius was commanding troops at the battle in Africa, but we don't know what his rank or title is in whatever country or African country or nation he was defending. Like, he just seemed like he was just like a section leader or something. Like, they just, like, you're a leader.
He obviously, like, some type of lieutenant or captain, maybe.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just, like, nothing major.
Yeah. And then, it all comes to a head. It's basically... Everyone remembers Ridley Scott directing, what was that movie with Brad Pitt? Troy.
Oh, Troy, yeah.
So, basically, they end Gladiator 2 the way we all wanted Troy to end. It's like, what do they do in Troy? Like, they send their 2 best fighters, and they go and fight to the death in front of the armies, and then whoever wins, like, obviously whoever has the better warrior wins. That's what happens here, except it's Lucius versus Denzel Washington and his scheme to become the new emperor of Rome.
Yeah, which he is supposed to be like an actual person who becomes a Roman emperor at some point. I forget his name, but it's like, that's to say that wasn't that memorable of a movie. I don't remember anybody's name besides the main character.
Yeah. So it's just it just amalgamates to them having a single one-on-one sword fight at the end of the movie. And it's like, okay, now Rome is saved, But again, obviously history doesn't work well, So, again, you can watch somebody who sacrifices themselves to save the day, but again, everyone, literally, a year later, people will forget the sacrifice. It's like it's like a movie or anything else. It's like, if I guarantee you, if Christ came today and, in the sacrifice on the cross happened today, everybody would forget tomorrow. Yeah. That's how quickly,
TikTok brain would immediately have people forget. What was that crap that happened yesterday? For instance, there's something we'll probably talk about on tomorrow's shows, like that shooting that happened in Tennessee yesterday. Yeah. So, that's something that's just like, and also the shooter was African American, so we're not going to hear much about it anymore.
So again, it just undoes basically the memory of the first film. But again, that's why I say it's realistic, because who cares about that one gladiator that was fighting to bring back the reign of Marcus Aurelius and turn Rome into what Marcus Aurelius thought Rome should be? Mm-hmm. Who cares? And again, history didn't actually flow as in, wow, Maximus' sacrifice turned around the entire culture of Rome. It's like, no, it didn't. Yeah. People go back to the same old ways.
Which that's also the other part too. Is like, I even mentioned this to you. Is like, it's kind of like the Star Wars, the new Star Wars trilogy. It's like, they completely betrayed Luke Skywalker's characters. Like, everything that Luke did in the first trilogy is meaningless in the second trilogy, or in the sequel
in the Disney trilogy.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's the same thing here. Like, everything that Marcus Aurelius did everything that Maximus did in the first one is irrelevant and was undone in this movie. Mm-hmm. Which is realistic, but at the same time you're like, oh,
it just undoes the message. Like, again, the message of the first movie is strength and honor, self-sacrifice. And this movie also lives on basically quote farming the original movie. Yeah. Like, it's literally nostalgia baiting you the entire time. It's like going, you will never control me in this life or the next. It's like, wow, way to say it with less meaning and impact than the first one. It's like, I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. It's like, dude, he said that to the face of the emperor, the guy that killed his family and his pseudo-father figure. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And then he says it to Denzel Washington, like, at the early scenes of the film. Like, when Maximus said that to Commodus, it was like the reveal. Mm-hmm. But whenever Lucius says it to, Denzel Washington, it's like, it's an afterthought. It's just like, I just want to say something cool. It's like, and that's literally what the writers were thinking. Oh, this would be a great time to insert this line. Yeah. You're like, shut up, dude. Like, it's not earned. Like, in the original film, again, the thing about the more personal a story is, the better it is. You can have this. It's like the reason why the original Star Wars trilogy is better than the prequel trilogy. The prequels, it's all about this bigger fight surrounding everything and the bigger happenings and going on. But what's the story that you remember? It's why the third one tends to be the one that people remember the most, because it's Vader's fall to the dark side. It's Anakin's fall to the dark side. It's like, he fails. Mm-hmm. He does bad things he comes the villain to save his wife and then ends up killing his wife.
Well, I also didn't even think about this, but it's the Scott Pilgrimage problem. Scott Pilgrim versus the world, or whatever it is. You remember what the original ending was supposed to be, right?
Yeah, he gets with knives.
Yeah, he breaks up with what's her name?
Ramona Flowers.
Ramona Flowers, and gets with Knives, the girl that he was dating throughout the first of the movie. And the audience felt cheated. Like, wait, so he did all this work
and
to go save
the
seven evil
He fought
exes.
the 7 evil exes to get with Ramona.
Exactly.
And he ends up getting with Knives because he realized Ramona's toxic and a bad person.
Exactly. But that was the point. It was like, everyone's like, so what was the point of this movie? Like, fighting all these dudes and with the one chick, to be like, I have to get with this girl, and then you're like, then you deny the audience of that. That's subversion, but at the same time, it's like, wow, so you did all that work just to realize that your life before was the good life.
Yeah, and again, this movie starts that way too. Like, his life is perfect. His life is absolutely perfect. He's got the babe, hot wife. They both love each other. They're doing laundry, and that's how you know she's good as dead, too. Getting him any email, it's like, wow, this couple's really happy. I hope nothing bad happens to them.
If a character is super happily married, or they have a family and they keep pointing out their family so much, like, oh, this dude's dead.
And again, it's like, it's far better in the original, because Maximus was fighting a war, and the only thing he was looking forward to, like, could see in the first opening scene that he was sick of fighting. He was sick of the battle. He'd finally won the war against the Germanic tribes. And he goes, I get to go home now. And then what happens? He goes, please do not ask me to become the next emperor of Rome. I don't want the honor. I don't want the privilege. I want to go home and spend time with my wife and kids. It's what again, this is why all good movies are inherently conservative, because what does a conservative want? We want to retire to the country with our wife and kids and just be left alone. That is what we want.
We want to retire to our farm with our wife and kids and just work the land.
Yes, that's the dream. Like, that's all you want. We want our big house with our white picket fence, our dogs and our kids running around playing in the backyard having a good time. That's the dream. And Maximus never got to see that dream. But guess what? Lucius did at the beginning of this film. He's like, I'm living the dream. And then, of course, Rome comes in and takes his dream away from him. And then,
that's the other thing, too. If he's a Roman citizen, he was Roman royalty, for instance, he should know, oh, we're going to lose. I'm going to take my wife and get the heck out of here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he could have been like, no, we need to go. We can just retreat further into Africa. But no, he's like, we're going to fight. And not only are we going to fight, I'm going to make sure my wife fights, too. God. And then even the I'm sorry, folks.
And I forgot he even had a wife halfway through the movie, because they just he never really brought up ever again.
Yeah, well, and they didn't do the death scenes as good either. Like, but this is what happens when atheists write stories. It's like the afterlife is not like this thing. So at least with the original Gladiator, Elysium, like him walking through the hayfields and, look how gorgeous that shot was. And like, it's like you expect him to like go, but he keeps going to the afterlife, even though he hasn't experienced any near death moments. Like the near death moment he has is at the beginning when he falls in the water. Mm-hmm. But he never again sees death. Like the whole Gladiator, the original movie, we know Maximus is doomed to die because that's how the shot opened. The movie opens with him in Elysium in the hayfields, like basically going home to his home, but something's off about the way the shot is done. That like whatever's happening here is like a dreamlike sequence of like what he wants. But that's done better. And this one, it's like what do you call that? The Grim Reaper or whatever coming across the ferryman.
Death,
the ferryman.
The death ferryman, yeah.
The death ferryman. It's like it's not even done as well as the original Gladiators. Like, stick with the theme. Like, the theme should be the same because he's Maximus's son. Like, Elysium should be what he believes in, not the ferryman.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going back to like Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we'll just kind of end it off with this right here. I guess we'll play this out with this. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on regarding the movie?
No, it is an entertaining popcorn flick, okay? But if you're looking for like it to inspire you the way the first Gladiator movie is, I mean, like it will not even get close. Like you'll sit there and be like, boy, Lucius is really an unlikable little turd, And all of his friendships that he makes in this movie feel really forced. Like if I was any of the people that became friends, I'd be like, you're just a whiny little boy, It's like, oh, my wife died. It's like, we're in the Roman Empire. A lot of people's wives are dead,
Yeah. Yeah, just nothing, I told you, none of his character arc, like,
felt
deserved. Like, it's everyone just liked him for no reason. Like, oh, you bit a monkey. You are funny.
Yeah.
We like you.
Yeah, it's like he bit a monkey. He was forced into leadership roles despite the fact that other than his leading his army that lost in battle, like, why is they just putting him in charge, you know?
So, and like, he's a little boy, so he clearly didn't have much military experience besides what he might have got in, the African tribe that he was with.
He fled. Like, as soon as the ending of the original Gladiator, his mother sent him away. Like, fled up. So he clearly didn't get much in the way of military training. Maybe, like, military training from African tribes who were like, this is how we conduct battle. It's like, well, this is nothing like how Romans would conduct battle. This is just how raiders will raid,
Exactly.
So, again, it all feels forced and undeserved for his character. And, again, they brought back characters from the original movie that unceremoniously just get killed in the movie. Yeah. You're just like, oh, that's how you know it's serious.
And also, like, you're talking about I know what you're talking about, the senators. It's like, oh, we would like you to be our emperor. When in the whole first movie, they were like, I won't trade one emperor for another.
Yeah, I won't trade
And, like, he's just like, oh, I don't care. As long as you're in charge, my lady, I'll follow you.
Yeah, the lady from the original one, they're like, well, we'll follow you, lady. But, I mean, again, I guess you could say that he trusted her to not become a tyrant, but still, it's just so dumb. But, again, a realistic interpretation of how history actually plays out. But, again, it's what happened. My biggest issues were Everything felt forced. Everything felt undeserved. Still, cinematic, good popcorn flick. Definitely won't bore you, but you're not going to remember it either. It's not going to be like...
No.
At the end of the day, it's like if you're going to watch... Do you want to watch Gladiator or Gladiator 2? You'll be like, Gladiator. Every single time. Because it hits harder.
No.
It's more emotionally resonates with you. You know, that's what you want. You want good stories that emotionally resonate. That's why the original Star Wars trilogy, it resonates. It sits with you emotionally.
There was one main bad guy in that movie, and it was Commodus. And, you know, it was good. And in this one, there were 3 different bad guys. There's the bad guy that Lucius is after, the general, who's not really a bad guy. Then there's
the incompetent emperors.
Then there's the 2 incompetent emperors who are basically the same person. And then you have Denzel Washington's character,
who's the only competent character in the show. But everything he did just, you know, it was just so, I don't know. It just didn't feel real, you know. But and I know that, you know, there is some truth to the history it's based on, but still, you're just like, eh.
No, I was like that's what they always say about Ridley Scott's movies. He plays super loose with historical movies.
Yes, yeah, fast and loose with the historical accuracy. But again, still an entertaining flick. Something, you know, you can watch it, you can enjoy it, and it's a good popcorn flick. But definitely is not going to hit the same as the original Gladiator. So again, like I said at the beginning of this review, ultimately a pointless sequel.
Yeah, I would say it probably. All it was for the gladiator fight scenes that Ridley Scott wishes he could have done in the first one, guaranteed.
Yeah, and then sharks in the sharks in the Colosseum. How did you transport sharks to the Colosseum?
You know how far away Rome is from the ocean? Or I should say, that Rome in the city.
They built aqueducts. They were able to ship sharks. They were able to force sharks to come into these aqueduct lanes and ship them into Rome.
Hilarious.
BS. But yeah, no, that was ridiculous. But that's about all we've got for you today. That was our review of Gladiator 2, Electric Boogaloo. But that's about all we got for you. This is the Twins with the Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. But that is all I've got for you today. God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
Do not ask Russell Crowe about Gladiator 2.
They should be fucking paying me for the amount of questions I've had to answer about the fucking film that I'm not even in.
Ridley Scott recently wrapped filming for his Gladiator sequel, starring Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Pedro Pascal. Mescal plays a grown-up Lucius from the first film. And let's just say Russell Crowe doesn't have anything to do with the sequel and doesn't want anything to do with it.
I don't know anything about the cast. I don't know anything about the plot. Well, I wouldn't, would I? Because I'm dead. I have no idea what they're doing. And it's got nothing to do with me. In that world, I'm dead. 6 feet under. That's that. I was in Malta recently. We did a concert there. And I looked across to Fort Ricasoli, and the Colosseum's built there again, like it was in 1999. It was like a time warp. For a couple of seconds there, I was like, what year is this? I wasn't expecting that they would rebuild the Colosseum in the same place. I admit to a certain tinge of jealousy. If Ridley has decided to do a second part to that story, he will have really strong reasons.
The movie comes out right around Thanksgiving.